everyone, Nick Ernst here, the Director of Engineering at ARCO Marine. Today I wanted to give you a demo of the Zeus app. So here we're on our overview. You can see our Zeus regulator popped up right here on our device. We're going to start in the top left corner, the information icon. It gives us adjustments like app settings, documentation, data logging, configuration editing, license info, and reporting a problem. App settings, you can change your units of measure, you can enable state of charge messaging in the app, ask to save your PIN, reset your preferences in the app. And then we're going to go back to the information icon. We have documentation. All of our documentation is on here. The installation guide, LED status codes, complete wiring diagrams, integration guides with Victron and Lithionics and RBC communication. For configuration editing, we have complete guides at arcomarine.com/Zeus that will walk you through how to save your configuration and send it to somebody, whether it's for a support reason or just to share your settings. You can do that both ways. Now we're going to dive into our device. Here we have our ARCO Zeus. You can click View Device. And here you have your two radial buttons and your bottom tiles. You notice on your screen there's a red line going across the top. Everything above that red line stays. It never changes between the different screens we're going to go to. It stays the same. And what that's going to show you is battery volts, battery amps, engine RPM, alternator duty, and alternator temp. So those are always going to stay there. Now you'll also notice a little gray box. That little gray box is going to be shifting when you're charging, and it's going to be telling you your limiting factor. So let's say you're at 800 RPM, you're at idle, and your gray box is over your engine RPM. That's telling you to get more power out of your alternator to charge your batteries. We need to increase your engine RPM. But if you want to stay at 800 RPM or 850 or if you're idle, that's totally fine, but that gray box is going to shift and tell you what your limiting factor is. So all your radial buttons and all your tiles are fully configurable. So let's say you want to see something other than alternator amps, you can long press and you get a option menu that pops up. And let's say I want to see alternator watts, and down here I actually want to see battery watts. So I like to use my watts for unit of measure. So you can configure those and select whichever data you'd like to see. Just like the tiles down below, I have state of charge, engine RPM, and alternator watts. Let's change that and say battery volts. You can select that unit of measure, and that data is going to be shown for you. Now, these settings are custom and will stay with your device. If somebody else opens up their app and connects to your Zeus, this is not what they will see. This will stay with your device. So you can have a different configuration and layout and see different data than your friend will. Now we're going to move on to our live details page. Go to the top right-hand corner and click that three lines. So again, everything from the red line up stays the same, red line down changes. So all of these tiles, you can grab them, you can move them around. You can't select what data they show, as these are the data points they're going to show, but you can move them around. Where that comes in handy is on a phone. You'll normally get about 2 icons wide on your phone, and if you want to see alternator temp, alternator volts, if that's important information you want to see, you can move those to the top, and you'll always be able to see those without scrolling. Now here on this tablet, we don't really need to because we can see all the data. All the data here is being data logged at 2 hertz for 2 minutes. So I know we had spoken about a data log and information icon, so that's an extended period of time. This is just a circular buffer that we log in the app, so you can go into these icons here. And so let's just pick one, let's pick state of charge. And you can see the last 2 minutes of history. So regardless of if you have started a data log, you'll be able to see the last 2 minutes of history. And that's true for all of these icons here. Now we're going to move on to our settings. Go to the top right corner, click that gear icon for me. Now you do get a warning, and it says, changing the following settings can cause severe damage to your regulator, batteries, and any other devices connected to the system. Do not change these settings unless you know what you're doing. For us, we know this and we understand. Click yes. Now if it's your first time going into the app, you'll be prompted for your PIN. Enter your PIN, you click unlock, and you'll get the option to save your PIN. Now, if you want to have to enter a PIN every time you log into your app, which is fine, go ahead and click dismiss. Otherwise, if you just want the app to remember your device, click save, and we want it to remember. Now we have our battery, alternator, charge profile, and regulator tabs. If we open up our battery tab, we can see things like, is it a 12-volt system, 24, 36, 48? You'll select your battery voltage, your thermistor type. Right now it's ARCO. You can put your amp hours, your max charge current, your temp sensor. The temp sensor is not required on the batteries. It is required on the alternator, just so we can continually monitor the temperature of the alternator and protect it if it does get hot. Minimum voltages, max voltages, your shunt offset scales, your shunt ratings. A nice feature we have is if you were to install a shunt, now we have our wiring diagrams to show you what colors go where, but if by chance you reverse those, instead of falling down into the engine bay and having to swap them manually, you can come into the app and say shunt reversed and say enable, and now we just, in software, switched your readings. So, like I said, no need to crawl back into the engine bay after you're already done and cooled off. You can just hit the shunt reverse in the app and you're good to go. We're going to click on our alternator tab here. Basic information, P-type, N-type, things we want to know. Tach pulls, drive ratio, startup delays, ramp to bulk, max operating temp, max absolute temp. Where the drive ratio comes into play, you want to make sure you're pretty accurate on that. That's what Zeus uses to determine your engine RPM. Max temp and max absolute temp. So max temp is the maximum temp that we use for temperature compensation control. So if your alternator, let's say here it's set to 100 degrees C, if your alternator gets to 90 degrees C, Zeus will change modes from bulk charging or absorption. Normally it happens in bulk charging, but it will change from bulk to temperature compensation. So what we're going to do is we're going to reduce the output of your alternator to protect the alternator. We really want to cool your alternator down and get to a steady state at your 100 degrees C max operating temp. Now your max absolute temp is the temperature that we use. Normally it's set at about 110, and that is the temperature that we use that if your alternator, regardless of Zeus's efforts, gets to that 110 degrees C, we're going to cut the field to protect your alternator. And then once your alternator gets to the safe operating temperature again, then we'll start charging again. Here's our RPM limits curve. So max engine RPM, and here it's set to 6,000. We can even change that to 3,200. And then immediately, once you set your engine RPM, the graph down here will rescale. To adjust our engine RPM curve, all we have to do is click on the graph, and with a finger, you can set a new charge curve. Let's hit save. Duty minimum, duty maximum. Duty maximum, if you're using a 48 volt system, most alternators are 12 volt fields, so you put about 25%. Again, this is for a 48 volt system. Your duty maximum is 25%. If you're using a 12 volt system, duty maximum is 100. And you can set that. Now why I'm highlighting that is if you were to set your duty maximum at 25%, it auto scales the graph, so even with a 25% maximum field, you still get full range of the graph. So for 48 volt systems, you're not just limited to a little curve, you get the full scale. So let's set this back to 100. Because we're on a 12 volt system. We're going to enable our alternator shunt, and it just gives you a message. Is a shunt installed for the alternator in addition to the battery? Enable. There we go. Now we have our alternator shunt. Now we're going to go down to our charge profile. Looking for absorption exit voltage, absorption exit current, absorption exit time. You can set in here. Default is 300 minutes. You can change that. Some people like to hold their batteries in absorption for no longer than 30 minutes or 10 minutes. You can go ahead and change that. Now we're going to go to our regulator tab here. You have your name. You can rename your Zeus. Name it Nick's ARCO Zeus, or if you have a dual engine install, port and starboard, you can do that just so you know which one is which. Your 3 NMEA messages, those are enabled by default. Those are the 3 NMEA messages that a device such as a servo or any other GX device needs to see Zeus and report its data. So those are enabled by default. You can turn those off if you don't need them, but they are there. You can also enable your RVC messaging. So if you are an RVC system with any of the mini batteries out that use RVC or an RV application, you can turn off your NMEA if you don't need them and enable RVC. We also have limp mode. If a sensor wire gets cut, Zeus will go into a max power generation of 20% to limp you home so that your system doesn't die. We also have our tachometer required, ATC input, which is a great feature to have for BMSs that support that output. We have our feature out, our feature ins. Our feature out is a 120 watt output. So at 12 volts, you can drive 10 amps. 48 volts, you can drive 2.5 amps. Your sync mode, your CAN address, and your CAN priority. So typically you don't set your CAN address or CAN priority, but your sync mode. You can set Victron follower, ARCO follower, leader, Lithionics follower, AE bus. We have many battery integrations that we have in here and a library that you can choose from. Now that we've gone through all 4 of our tabs, we have made some changes. So you'll see that our floppy disk in the top right corner used to be white, it's orange now. That's telling us that we have changes that are not saved, so you can click that floppy disk. You'll get a green check mark. That means everything's saved to Zeus. It's not saved to your device, it's saved to Zeus. So if somebody else comes up later on and connects to Zeus, they will see the settings that you just saved. Like I said, it's not saved to the device, it's saved to Zeus. So that's a quick overview of the app and what you can do with it and the capabilities. One thing you can also do is at the Google Play Store or the Apple Store, you can download the ARCO Zeus app, and without a device, go to the top right corner, click the plus icon, and click Create Demo Device. Yes, Create Demo Device. And now the app will simulate a Zeus for you. So you don't have to have a physical device present to connect to go in and explore the app and see how things work. It's a fully functional device in the sense that it's simulated. You click View Device, go to your live details. You can even go down in your settings. It'll do the same thing as before, create your PIN, save it, and now you can change values and make adjustments to the device as if it were an actual physical device next to you. Thanks for watching, and I hope you learned some new things about the ARCO Zeus app. To learn more about the Zeus high energy product family, go to arcomarine.com and download our app.